Good afternoon and welcome to the Senate Committee on Government Operations Committee meeting of Thursday, April 23rd, 2026. Two items up for consideration today, the first of which is H907, an act relating to legislative review of reporting requirements. I just got this notice again that we have on January 3rd of this year from, I think it came from Tucker. But anyway, it was the thing that said, if you don't get back to us to tell us which provisions or reports you still want, we'll consider that you determine they are no longer needed. I just thought that was kind of funny. So Tim Devlin is with us, and I see that we have a new chart, and then we also have a new draft one of the bill. And I don't know which one you want to walk through first.
Sure. And I should say it should be the same chart that we've been reviewing.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. Hard to skip the beat there. We do have a strike all amendment as offered by this committee to the as passed by the House version. There are two changes so far, and then I provided answers in written form in that email to committee members regarding some of the questions that came up last time. Happy to systematically go through those as well. Okay. So the two changes here, the bill have been highlighted for ease of reference. Much of it is still the same. I just threw it together and says strike all amendment. Seems to be what the point, but happy to adjust this. So we'll see on page 15, we have, let's see. Okay. This is section 14 having to do with 3 VSA 3902, Office of Economic Opportunity. And here's where we have
page 15.
Sorry, 15. Yeah.
Line 11.
Yeah.
And so we have some highlights on the bottom of page 15 and then going to 16. This is an update, point being the changes advocated by witness testimony by Mr. Weiss. And so we have weatherization. Thinking about it. So here we have changing it to an annual report that the office shall provide in written form to the House committees on appropriations and energy and digital affairs, and to the Senate committees on appropriations and natural resources and energies. And we see some of the report content being built out in the additional lines or subdivisions. 14. Yeah. Yes, and that's the summary of those. That's it. The next amendment we found on page 21, so all the way at the end of the bill. And this is in section 23. And this will amend 32 VSA, section 311, as retirement funds integrity report. Let me just actually skip over to notes I shared earlier to discuss this. So there was a request that to add the Joint Public Pension Oversight Committee as a recipient of this. The statute requires a statement that is provided as part of the annual budget report by the governor. So it's not a standalone report in of itself. So can't really, Oversight Committee wouldn't necessarily receive the report because no report supposed to be received. But there's subsection B there, essentially empowers various committees to ask for a report from the treasurer on similar matters. And so I've slotted in the Joint Public Pension Oversight Committee will now be empowered to request that the treasurer and commissioner of finance and management, sorry, also that part of the administration, present on those recommendations. And that would be in addition to the House or Senate committees on GovOps or appropriations.
Okay. Question for John, postal amendments.
Okay. So then moving over back to some notes I provided everybody, which just answers some questions that came up last time. So let's see, on our chart we had some questions about 2018 Act 119. This is here. Okay, this will be on the second page of our chart, halfway through here. And this was actually a series of reports that goes on to the next page, 4 rows, having to do with series reports pertaining to veteran licensure. And the question was, why aren't these not just kind of bundled up in one report provided? The answer there is that the information seemingly comes from 4 distinct entities. And so it would probably be best, well, I can't say best, that's a policy decision to be made. Whether those should be bundled or not, but so these are coming from the city. Veterans granted license for the trades, other regulated professions, vehicle inspections, and who is becoming a vehicle inspector, and who has had a license for food establishments. So those that information is coming from 4 different agencies, and I guess it's a policy choice to determine whether the efforts behind interagency coordination to merge such a report would be worth it, or if it suffices to receive 4 parallel reports.
I don't know, strong feeling one way or another. I was kind of hoping that there would only be one agency involved and we could talk about potential consolidation of reports, but apparently that's not going to work. Because you got DPS, you got Secretary of State, Department of Health, and then DMV and yeah.
And inspection stations are pretty different than inspecting food, if I'm understanding correctly. Is inspection
vehicle-
stations like vehicle inspections?
Vehicle inspections.
Yeah.
Yes.
Pretty different.
Yeah, I like you was hoping it could be consolidated, but it sounds like that might actually create additional.
A fifth report.
Yes. Well, I would want to do 1, not 5. But I do wonder, because the other question I had was whether or not it would make sense for these to be biennial reports rather than every year reports. Licensure tends to happen on a biannual basis.
That makes sense. Yeah, that's not a bad idea. The rest of the committee feel.
I think inspection stations have to review every year, but I'm not sure it's, that's what I have to bear my charge with.
Sorry. I mean, it's, well, and it's specifically about how many veterans have been granted into that. I still think it would be okay for it to be a biennial report. I think we'll still get the information we're looking for
Every other
year.
Okay.
Then the question is, do we want it at the beginning of biennium or in the second half of biennium? And I don't feel strongly one way or the other.
Nor do I. Did you have a question, Senator Flex?
Yeah, I guess I thought we were on the 4 reports on the second page of 2018.
Yes,
I don't see service stations.
I think that one's on the next page.
Thank you. Sorry, I was focused on these 4 and I'm thinking, I think I'm just not on the same page and I wasn't. It's the rest of my committee members. Got it. So the suggestion, Becky, is biannual reports.
I don't read that report.
And it's not necessarily that we're reading an actual inspection result. We're reading whether a certain amount of veterans get certified to be inspectors.
And I think you have to maintain a license every year to be an inspector,
I don't know that.
but
Is that true?
I don't know.
I do, yeah, well, and I don't know either. I know for most of the others, they're every 2 years.
Okay.
Some of them are alternating years, but I still think that, that we're looking at a small subset of people that have gotten those. And I think we can probably gather that information for the purposes of expanding those programs with a biennial report.
Convinced.
Okay. First year of a biennium or second?
First.
Okay.
That it's more competitive, there are fewer reports to compete with your attention on the second.
Again, easily swayed on this one. So I defer to the
I say
wisdom
on the second. Just because the number of reports come in at the beginning of each biennium are substantial.
So could you redraft that, Tim?
Absolutely.
So that's Act 119. And so section 8A, B, D, and C. Oh no, one of them is Act. Yeah. And just make them required to be every other year in the second year of the biennium.
Sure.
Okay.
An even years. Okay. Sounds good. Let's see, the next questions came up with, 2018 Act 174. And okay, so on the third page is the part of the table. And this had to do with a report filed, a privatization contract has not achieved the required cost savings or complied with park performance. And there's a question is, what does on condition mean? So this subdivision, will actually read 2, if the auditor of accounts finds that privatization contract does not achieve the cost of savings required under subdivision A2, this section will comply with performance measures required under subdivision B1 of this section. The auditor shall file a report with the agency and the House and Senate government committees. An agency shall review whether to renew the privatization contract for performing work and save the funds. So the on condition here means that the report will be issued only if the auditor makes a certain finding.
Okay.
Good. Sounds the
Unconditional.
let's see, next question had to do with 4 VSA, section 40. This is from 2019 Act 54, usage of temporary employees by the judiciary. The question was, is this information found elsewhere outside of the report? I should say that at least, some data appears to be available in the state of Vermont employee salary database. When you search by the judiciary, and then you can talk about job type, it comes up as a list of temporary employees that can be viewed with some other information, like name, title, salary. And then one could count the number of rows, although I don't think that is necessarily exportable from this one. I couldn't figure it out. The little time I dedicated to it. And I couldn't readily find an example to submit a report to really compare information. I would, of course, defer to one of the witnesses behind me to provide a more educated response.
And we will for sure. Very personal. So did you have questions?
Yes, I do. I mean, some of these you say Act 171, that's great, but there's no Act 54 anywhere here or any of the acts here. I don't see where that's listed.
Sorry,
So is this,
not understand the question, which,
it's an observation on the third page under 2018, it says Act 171 and the one above it, it says Act 119. But then there are no acts listed for the next 4 or 5 things.
oh, yes, the second column is in place.
So is the second one 2019 3 VSA that you're talking about? That's Act 54. I mean,
It's the one right underneath it.
it doesn't say Act anything.
40, Act 58.
No, it doesn't say that.
It's on the,
It's the fourth one down.
Okay, yes, but this one has nothing, and this one has nothing, and this one has nothing, and this one has nothing. So Act 58 is fine through that, that's great, but they're inconsistent. One is Act.
Yes.
Sorry, it's trying to follow your chart, which is inconsistent in that the acts are listed on the left-hand side, and there are no acts listed after this one. Okay, I see that Act 58 is there. What's the act above it?
So apologies that some of the kind of columns and rows here are inconsistent as far as what is it the act that's displayed first, or is it a statute and then maybe an act that's kind of the secondary column?
Right, so the 2019 one is Act 54, is that right?
It is.
It doesn't say it anywhere. I'm just trying to.
And so some of them, will have an act and no statute number because the session law, there's no statute, of course, there. The statutes that don't have an act number, I'd have to look those up.
Okay. That's so, because you keep referring to acts and then I can't.
Yes, no, I understand. It's fine.
okay.
Sorry about And I can go and.
It's no big deal. I just need to know then which line.
I'm looking at the email, but it's okay.
Okay, I'm not looking at the email. I'm looking at the printout.
Well, I have that too. But here's my
Okay.
question for Tim. Are you saying that we pretty much can already get that information if we want? And that this report is not
For the,
temporary employees employed by the judiciary?
We can get that from HR.
We weren't totally sure that we could. That's the question we asked him to
I was
answer.
gonna say, I wasn't able to readily find the report that's provided by the judiciary, so it's hard for me to compare
Okay.
what information is in the original report and therefore could be found out.
Okay, so we'll hear from Terry. Finish. And then we have a fourth, item.
Oh, and that's, we already covered that.
Okay. Retirement, yeah, gotcha. Let me just ask Mr. Weiss, have you seen the language and are you
I
happy?
have seen the language and I appreciate you bringing it into the bill. And I'm thrilled that you were so enthusiastic about it.
Okay, great. Does anyone else have questions for Tim?
I do, and it may just be that I failed to write it down, but the other question I have noted on my little chart, my old chart, my very messy one, is the 3 VSA subsection 33(1)(c)(3). And that is whether or not the positions of seasonal employment are locatable on the DHR website.
I'll have to look at it.
Okay.
Anything else for Tim?
And actually, I have noted here that can be found elsewhere. I think I might have been, I was observing while, my colleague Tucker Anderson was, last in here, but I'll double check.
Okay. Because if they can also be found quite easily, then I would suggest we eliminate that one word.
Okay. Great, thank you. So let's invite Terry Corsell, who's our state court administrator, for the Vermont Judiciary this month. And help us figure out the information about the temp employee from the judiciary. Welcome, Terry.
Thank you very much, Terry Corson, State Court Administrator. There are two sections in H 907 that pertain to the judiciary, but I'll do the temporary enforcement first, since that's is the question whether or not the information would be obtainable other than through the report that we file.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Easily obtainable.
Easily obtainable. I don't honestly know on the government website that has different information about.
Yeah, the HR website usually has all the temporary employees listed.
I actually am not familiar with that website, so I don't know how easily you'd be able to ascertain if they're temporary or not. Under the statute, the information that's sought is the number of individuals employed by the judiciary on a temporary basis who worked in excess of 1,280 hours in the prior calendar year, and the number of temporary positions in which one or more individuals have been employed for a combined total of more than 1,280 hours a year. So I know we can in our HR data find that pretty easily. So that's what we submitted the report. But just to give you an example, in the last 4 years, the reports that I would have been involved in, there were 0. But
There were 0 temporary employees.
Full-time
that's more
temporary
than
employees.
1,200 per year. Yeah. So whether that's available on the, I honestly don't know, but I can check and find out. So,
That'd be good. Yeah.
okay. Because other than the website, I'm not sure where most that information is. But we have it certainly easily enough in our information.
I wonder, because it seems to me, and I don't want to speak for the 2019 legislature, as I wasn't here. But it seems to me, given what you've just told us, that it's asking for, what it's really looking for is the number of full-time temporary employees. And I wonder if it would make sense to make this report on condition that you report to us if you have,
If you have it.
so that we can assume that if there's no report at 0, but if that happens, then you would report to us that you have X number.
Oh, sure, we can do whatever.
Is that more feasible for you all?
Sure. Well, to be honest, it's not a huge burden to do this either, to be honest. And my understanding is where the rose was, there was an issue in prior years as to whether or not there were, I wouldn't say too many temporary employees. And so the limit is you can't have for more than 2 years temporary employees who work more than 20 hours a week.
Right.
So we were aware of that restriction. And So whatever you all prefer is fine with us. It really probably.
I love requiring every other year for a lot of these, so.
We could do that too. I was just wondering, given
Yeah.
that, Terry's testimony is for the last couple of years, there haven't been any. If we change the
Oh.
request to be that they report to us if there are
Okay.
employees that meet that
I'm
criteria.
fine with that too.
Okay, and that would be manual.
So, just making sure Tim's,
Is
so
that
that would
right?
be on conditions as well. Yep. Okay,
Great. And then the other section, is in what I'm interpreting to be a blanket section where they're saying it would be repealed. There was an.
yeah, the only questions we had were the ones that we rose, or that rose up. So the other one, we must have already decided.
Well, so no, I did still have
Oh.
it highlighted about the report on Superior Court public records cases.
Okay, sure.
Oh, okay.
The questions I have sort of is what the intent was, if you have any sense of what the intent of that report is and what it is really reporting.
Yeah, it was in the 2011 session, so I don't honestly have any ideas to the intent. But if this helps to give you just some overview, so it asks for contested cases involving disputes under the Public Records Act. That's what we're to report on. And in the last 16 years, basically, since this has been in effect, there have been a total of 111 cases, and ranging from 1 a year to 12 a year, with an average of a little under 7 a year, because the number of cases are basically involved. And it's kind of a variety of government agencies. It might somewhere like a school district, a municipality, a police department, AG's office. It really has kind of varied in terms of when people have made public records requests and they weren't satisfied with the outcome, so they can go to court. Question. So that's kind of the category of cases and the numbers that are kind of involved, if that's helpful.
It helps me.
Okay.
Tim, can you remind us what the House said they wanted to do with this particular report?
Sorry,
This is the very first one. It's 2011 Act number 5 for S9 subsection 15, no, 59 subsection 15.
so
Yeah.
looks like they want to repeal it.
Okay. I feel like knowing about contested public record stuff is actually fairly important. One would say. Especially given the numbers, I mean, that's over 100. And obviously not every year, but I feel like,
just about 7.
yeah.
Mhm.
And I certainly know I've received some pretty contentious frustration with public records stuff. I don't know that I feel good about repealing it, but I would feel okay about making it biennial.
Okay. Let's do that and make it again the second year of the biennium. Of course, this will go now back to them.
We'll see where we.
As soon as we change it, we gotta have their concurrence or we'll have a further proposal with them. Anything else for Terry Cook's office?
I didn't have anything unless Perry has other stuff for us.
Those were the only 2 sections that I feel look like it affected the courts. Right from that, there's other information.
Well, this is your moment, Terry. All those cookies you definitely have not asked.
No, I just take the opportunity to thank you so much for all your work on the government.
Well, thank you for your work. Thank you for your help
Yeah.
Oh, my
on our
pleasure.
other bill. I'll look at that. Might have a moment. Thank
Okay,
you.
oh, sure, no, that's fine, but if you, like, as we say,
Yeah,
let me
no,
know
no.
if there's any more details.
We'll see what happens with that by the end of it.
Okay. There
We'll
was,
stay in touch.
okay, that sounds fine, I'm right next to it.
Oh. Well, while we're speaking about Terry Corzones and her cookies, I might inquire of the other side of the table where those cookies might have gone.
I know you,
They're sort of behind the chair.
Oh, well, perhaps we'd like to pass on this very moment to say how grateful we are
Yes, all right.
to Terry Corzones for her efforts at keeping us sweet
My pleasure.
and well fed.
your next witness with whom we served on the Human Rights Commission for a number of years ago.
That's
And he needs one of these badly. Give
He
it to me.
recognizes the bad. He's like, you're still doing that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Karen.
Thanks.
Okay, Michael Anderson.
Nice.
Oh, he's on the screen.
I think he is. Sergeant.
Sergeant, Department of Public Safety. Welcome in.
Hi, Terry. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Can you hear me okay?
You can,
Yes.
yes.
Perfect.
So we have. Let's see, 1, 2.
Yep. First page is one.
There's the drone usage report.
So there's just 2 sections that we were wondering about. And as Senator Bielski just said, one of them is in Title 20. It's a report on drone use by law enforcement agencies. And I'm not sure what the House wanted to do with this, but
Well,
tell us how that report is generated, maybe, Michael, if you could.
and then there's one on page.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a few years ago, once drones started getting a little bit more use throughout the public safety sector, I believe there was a act that required DPS to report annually to the legislature not only the drone usage for DPS, but also compile drone usage throughout the state. Since then, I think with with a lot of new law enforcement technology, there is concern for privacy from the public, rightfully so, right? We don't know how these are going to be used. We can only put guardrails in and then report how we use them. But I think, much like body cameras, that this type of technology has been shown to be used in a responsible manner. And regardless of whether we continue reporting to the legislature on whatever you decide, we'll continue to report internally on our drone usage. And I believe the 9 other agencies that currently have drones will continue to report on their drone usage or internally, which would be available to the legislature upon request.
Okay.
What did the House?
They were going to section 13. They set this to be reviewed again July 1st, 2030.
I think I'm fairly comfortable concurring with the House on this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately we'll probably land in a place where we would want this report to continue in perpetuity, but let's see where technology is at in 2030 and reassess. That seems reasonable to me.
It'll be a whole new place.
Yes, we might not be doing drones anymore. It might be something new and more
We have our
exciting.
own jetpacks. and
That is
we
true.
have-
So you said there were 9 departments that use them?
Yeah, looking at the report from 2025, it was VSP, Hartford PD, Burlington PD, Milton PD, Middlebury, Morristown, Springfield, Swanton, and Washington County Sheriff's Department.
Yeah, Senator Clark.
And Mike, aren't people able to borrow equipment when they need it? I mean, my guess is you don't need a drone all the time, but then there are specific investigations or searches that you may want to be using a drone for.
Yeah, absolutely. So the state police, we by far have the largest fleet of UAS. We have exterior drone, which is used for crash reconstruction, search, a lot of search and rescue missions, missing hikers, dementia patients, right, who have taken off from the yard, use that for that. And then we have internal drones, which are used a lot of times in like tactical operations. If we're doing search warrants, the SWAT team, right, will introduce the drone prior to sending troopers in there just to make sure that try and clear the residents as best we can before putting troopers in there. And then also if we have like a barricaded subject, we're able to communicate with that subject without putting police officers in any more risk. So we assist all local and county agencies upon request, whether that's for crash reconstruction or if they're doing a search warrant, we'll assist them with the drones. Last year, state police, we had 160 drone deployments. And then I think the agency with the next largest was maybe Burlington with 18 deployments.
Sure. Well, it looks like the committee's gonna, go along with the House recommendation, which would be that you continue to annually report that, and we'll take another look at it in, I guess, 4 years.
Perfect.
I mean, it just anecdotally, as you would have overseen, I assume this aspect of the VSP. Do you, is that increase of the use of drones, I assume is increased every year as we get more comfortable with it and see their use in investigations and searches and stuff. So I assume it's growing in use.
Yeah, there's, and I just met with like Axon. They're a body law enforcement technology company, and the drone usage is being, the technology is advancing so quickly. And a lot of rural areas, for example, they have drone as a first responder program where, let's say, so from the Williston Barracks, right? They cover Jericho, Richmond, and there's not always a trooper on duty throughout the night. So they have this program where a drone could be staged, let's say on the town hall of Richmond PD. A call comes in, like a burglary alarm. A drone could be able to respond directly to the scene, start recording the area, could check the doors on the building to see if there was actually a burglary, or it could have just been a false alarm. And this technology is being used in rural states like Alaska, rural parts of Ohio, in the Midwest, to help speed up a first responder response time. So interesting stuff. So like you said, in 4 years, the technology is going to advance so quickly, we might not even be dealing with drones. We might be dealing with something completely different.
Senator Welling.
Just for Allison's benefit, the electric utilities used to fly helicopters along transmission corridors to check on things, scan things, all that stuff. And now they're using drones.
It's so much cheaper. I mean, that's saving so much money.
Helicopters.
Allison,
Helicopter,
This
I
might
know
be
the
a-
helicopter.
well, no, but so interestingly enough, the Ukrainian military is using drones to drop food to soldiers that are cut off from supply lines. So we might be able to stop using helicopters to drop.
Drones are, as long as food is getting to the front line for the Ukrainian soldiers, I'm happy.
They're not using, they would have used helicopters historically, and now they're using
And
drones
now
for
they're
that.
using
The
them.
drone technology is.
So
Also, drones are big.
Anywho.
Big.
Right.
they're also using it for vegetation management
Oh, yeah.
and all those types of things now. So it's making us better and more efficient.
They can be redeployed instead of looking for all those cannabis plants and cornfields. They can now. They can now.
Well,
Let's move on to the other report that we were.
Well, so the other one from the Department of Public Safety is the licenses issued to service members and veterans, which I think we've agreed to keep, to make a biennial report.
Yes.
But I'm happy to hear if if you want to weigh in,
Well, we also have the criminal justice.
but that's what the Criminal Justice Council will be here for.
And they're,
They're here.
I know, she's.
what do you feel about every other year report on that, Michael?
I'm not really in a position to say.
Okay.
I think every year, or every other year, as suggested, I think that makes sense. Like licenses are renewed usually every 2 years, so might get better data if you guys do it that way.
Okay.
Again, second year in the biennium then, if you could. Go ahead.
Yes, and I should just note that the reference to public division public safety here is actually, it's going to be the division within public safety of fire safety.
Oh,
For veterans obtaining licenses for journeyman electricians, journeyman plumbers, and some more electrician stuff.
so we don't get any type of reporting on veterans who are getting licensed as law enforcement.
Not here.
Well, forget about that one then.
Yeah.
I was way out of my lane.
Just good pinch hitting.
Great pinch hitting and I appreciate, does that exist anywhere else in statute?
Not in this bill, but.
Okay.
Anything else for, Michael? Okay,
Thank you.
thank you for your time. We appreciate it and, we'll see you soon, maybe.
Thank you for having me. Have a good
Okay.
day.
Yep. Lisa, do you have any time constraints or are you, because up next we have Paul Earlman, but, we can move the, or Earl Baum, excuse me. We can move that either way. If you just let me know which way you want to go.
I'm fine with time, so whichever way you want to proceed is fine. I'm not
Okay.
limited, but fine.
All right. So Paul, would you join us at the, table?
Be glad to.
Paul is, one of the commissioners of Vermont State Ethics Commission and we have, help me out here.
3 VSA subsection 1226. It is the second to last on the first page,
Oh, yeah.
and it is an annual report from the State Ethics Commission.
Yes. And I believe that that is referring not only to our annual report, but included in our annual report are reports from several other entities, including the Attorney General's office, Judicial Conduct Board, et cetera. The annual report is a big job, but we've been doing it for the last, since we existed. So other parts of the legislature are adding chores to us, but this is what we've been doing happily for quite a number of years. And aside from compiling the our own annual report, the only real hassle is there's a disparity. The statute itself telling us to compile reports from the Attorney General's office, Department of Human Resources, Senate ethics and House ethics panels, is that the disparity on dates. It says annually only before November 15th. So all of the following entities shall report to the Ethics Commission. So with one exception, I won't say who the exception is, with one exception, they all give us information up to that date, November 15th. One entity that keeps fiscal year starting September 1st only gives us to September 1st. We've asked, could you please give us, just another couple of months up to, like everybody else? The answer's been no. That's really the only hassle. Other than that, and my understanding from S907 is that we would continue doing what we have been doing, that we would be exempt from this stopping and reporting.
Yeah, okay.
That's certainly what I'm advocating for. I think
Yeah.
this should be one of those reports that's a permanent report.
But with permanent funding would help and
Yes.
more funding.
And two or three more positions would be
And-
great.
And
Okay,
I,
that's not in this bill, just to be fair.
but this committee advocated for
We did.
request and we now need to go and advocate with the conference committee about it.
For two positions, please.
I
Okay,
know.
Paul, thank you.
Thank you very much, folks.
So Lisa Ryan, who I know.
Our attorney wanted to weigh in.
Oh, sorry.
Just a quick point. The House has this in section 13 where we have reports repealed delayed. So this report will not be subject to review again until 2030. Is that how this could want, or would they like the review requirement?
I think that the Ethics Commission report is something that we need in perpetuity. I don't
And
think
every year, and we should really have it almost every 6 months, given what's been happening in this. building.
I feel fairly strongly that it should not be one that needs to be reviewed every 4 years, that it should be one of the ones that is kept permanent.
Statewide.
I'm convinced.
I don't have a strong feeling either way. I mean, whatever bodies in place at 2030 can look at it and say, we don't need it anymore, or we need it more often, or
We have a
we
new
need it
ethics
every other
or
year.
something.
We have a new ethics value in the state.
Yeah, I
People are-
think that I can't imagine a time in which we don't want a yearly report on the ethics. Correct.
Let's leave it, annually and for,
If I could just quickly interject, if you folks felt like inserting a clarification of what time period the reports of the various other agencies should cover, that would be helpful to us.
So I suppose we could always, go back to on or before, or is that the way it's worded now? You mentioned November 15th and then the other vicinity is.
It says that the report should be submitted on or before November 15th.
Oh, you want to have more.
You want
But-
to put it on it.
Well, no, it just, some of the reports, one of the reports we get only goes up until September 1st. The statute is not explicit to say that the information should go up until November 15th.
But when you get it the next year, does it fill in those 3 months?
It does. It just,
Huh.
the various, the 8 or 9 agencies, they don't all correspond in time.
Which is too bad. It would be nice if it's all consistent.
It would, and I don't know,
How could we do that with this bill?
yeah.
We could just require it and see what happens.
Well, they're-
In the report, it's, you say, it's looking for this
Well,
date, this date.
so I imagine what they report says that. I imagine that what they
Right.
report says this is September 1st through August 31st of,
That's,
because that's their fiscal year, whereas it sounds like every other agency is sort of reporting up to the deadline. So they're reporting, November 13th
But if
to
you were to
November
look at
14th. Yeah. All the data's still there. It's just a little wonky
Correct.
to. I want to maybe offline figure out who that agency is and get a sense from them what the challenge is before I mandated that they change it.
Fair enough.
Fair enough.
But we can chat offline and figure out.
Okay. So Lisa, you popped on twice. I apologize for, being inconsistent here. I think there's just one report that we have. It is on the last page. No, it's on the 3rd page of our,
We have second criminal justice training council on second one from on page 2.
yes, that's it. And it's a report on the use of electronic control devices, training, etc. So, what was the House recommendation, Tim, do you know?
One moment.
I'm curious what that even is. What is an electronic control device?
I'm guessing a taser.
It's a drone.
Yeah.
People said tasers. Some people said it was like the monitoring system for like the ankle monitoring. I don't even know what this
Lisa might
is.
know.
Well, good afternoon. Thank you so much for having me. Lisa Ryan, she, her pronouns. I'm the Community Inclusion Director at the Vermont Criminal Justice Council. So as far as I think Senator Bohosky's question, like what is that? I think that is the tasers, but I'm also I was thinking that you were going to be asking more about the fair and impartial policing policy compliance and reporting. So that is kind of what I've prepared to talk about it as far as the reports repealed.
Oh, no.
Is that in the reports reveal?
The,
Mhm.
the electric control devices isn't in the bill. I guess the House maybe didn't reach it.
Well, it says here, report on use of electronic control devices.
Right, but the House didn't put it in the bill.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure, why I wasn't following
Oh.
at that point. Sorry, I was looking at that. What was the second question?
The question of whether the fair and impartial policing compliance report is in the bill.
Let's see. Yes, we do have, let's see, requirement for Criminal Justice Council report concerning fair and impartial policing and training that is found and required in 20 VSA 2316 That is under section 13 again, so it'll be reviewed again in 2030. See if it's repealed or adjusted or something.
I'd love to hear from Lisa on that. It's not on our chart, which is what I've been working from, so I didn't even realize it was in the bill.
Okay.
And then we can talk more after we hear from you about that. We can maybe talk more about tasers.
So as far as the fair and impartial policing compliance and policy, we're happy to continue the reporting until 2030. Like we can easily accommodate that because we're already reporting to the legislature annually on these compliance and training topics. So there's there's really no issue with moving forward with what we're already doing. It's not an additional burden at all. And as you can imagine, this is really important data for us to be collecting and sharing with you all. So it's something that we look forward to continuing to do annually.
Perfect. I think it should be until at least 2030, probably forever.
Yeah.
Is that, are
The
you,
world changes.
well, I think that we should probably always be reporting on how the enforcement arms of the state are working fairly and impartially. The world may change drastically, and I think that accountability is always important.
Absolutely. I agree.
Okay. So Tim, can I just ask a logistical question?
Yes.
With the TASER report not being in the bill, what does that effectively do, given that it?
No effect. It will still be required to be reported as whatever is mandated by the legislature originally. This review is something that was suggested through statute. That's the statute that was referred to in my colleague Attorney Tucker Anderson's 2 VSA 20D. It's basically set forth in statute that all new perpetual reports or permanent reports, basically that's more than a one-off, there'd be a check back after 5 years. The legislature hasn't always been great on checking in those 5 years. That's why we have the president over expire and stuff like that in the chart here. But without affirmative sort of new law here, actually permanently appealing those requirements, the reports continue to be required as ordinarily.
Do they also continue to show up in this list every year? So when we come back to if we don't extend that, say to 2030, we'll be looking at it again next year. I would suggest maybe we do the extension to 2030, then that way we're not having this exact same conversation about this exact same report a year from now.
Well, good idea.
Okay. Cool. And then I would advocate we make the fair and impartial policing report permanent, but if we want to review it in 2030, I won't.
Yeah, I mean, let's hope the world has become a better place by 2030.
But how will we know if we're not reporting on it?
Well,
We don't report every year until then.
2030. Wouldn't it be nice if that was the finding? I mean, let's.
Lisa, thank you very much. We appreciate it. Enjoy. the
Thank
rest-
you so much. You too. Take care, all.
Thank you.
Okay, we have one more witness, Sean Naylor.
Snap.
Right here from,
Sweet.
sorry, I'm just listening to.
Form.
Federal Program Director from ADS. How are you?
I am well. For the record, Sean Naylor, AC Digital Services, retired and back.
I
know, I
Sean,
wanted-
what goes around comes around. It's good to see you again.
Well, thank you. It's great to be here. Slightest personal aside, I felt strongly enough about what I worked with you folks on back in 23
Yeah.
on the council that when they were looking for somebody to help facilitate that cybersecurity work, it appealed to me. So I came back and I've been,
Well, you're a natural for it.
so, well, thank you. It's been going well. So if we have
Right.
opportunity to talk about it, it'd be great to kind of debrief you on that at the.
Okay.
So I think we're here though, right, for a cybersecurity advisory council report.
Correct.
I'm going to say, let's not do it anymore.
Really?
Yeah. For a couple of reasons. Okay. Technology, specifically cybersecurity, is not static enough to be annual anything. And I think what we have experienced so far with this annual report is that we're assuming it's ending up on the right people, the right eyes are seeing it and getting the message. And I don't think that's the case. And I think more of a dialogue of coming in on certain touch points and just talking candidly both about the work of the council and cybersecurity in general would be more effective. That's my thought. And the reason I say that is in the last 2 annual reports, statutorily, one of the things that the council has to do is make recommendations to the legislature for any changes. And in the last 2 annual reports, we've included recommendations to update the membership of the council of which we've not heard any activity. We've not been invited in to testify on it or anything else. And so that kind of is telling us it's not landing in the right places, right? That it's much better to be, instead of assuming the right people are reading something, right, that we're submitting on an annual basis, is to come in and have those candid conversations. So that's my perspective. A little bit personal, but also the position of the agency digital services.
I think you made a good case. That'd be helpful.
Can you think of a better way for us to ensure that that is happening? Because I think I appreciate the case you're making, and what my concern, and it sounds like it's already happening, is that we just sort of lose track of it. And I think cybersecurity and information technology in this day and age is critically important that we're paying attention to it and not losing track of it. So I'm wondering if you have any thoughts on how we can better put in statute a way that we ensure that that's happening.
I'm not sure if statute, right, extends to things like visiting certain committees on an annual basis, but I think that is the best vehicle, is to, if you've looked at our annual report, it is rather brief, right? We try to be succinct because the world we work in is the more you share, the more risk you expose.
Yeah.
Right. And so it would be much better to have, I feel, the opportunity to meet with the committees that have a vested interest in cybersecurity and review the same elements that we do in the annual report, but do it in this setting where we can have it more dialogue, questions and answers, because I think this isn't something, this isn't statistics, right? As I've been sitting here, I've been listening to a lot of what the annual reports are statistical, elements being rolled up and presented for this body to understand trends. That's not what we're working in, right? We're working in the real time of trying to help water system operators or electric utilities or healthcare entities figure out what they need to do better to be more resilient to cyber threats. And so it's a different kind of conversation. And I think it's one that we all bring probably personal experience. And when you can have that as a conversation and get it in that context, it can take sometimes what some people make as a complicated subject in it and find a way to connect with it and understand how it's applying. So those are kind of my thoughts, is to think about how to do it as a annual formal
Update.
Right, but not on the report, because I think the report ends up, just like I said, I think it ends up in the wrong eyes.
Yeah. Yes, Senator Clarkson.
So given that, you have the ability to be in touch with every chair and say, we'd like to come in, and we have not heard any response. We've asked for this change in the digital, you could always have to get on the agenda and say, we'd like to make this recommendation.
And I think that's where I said I think that's one of the things I've learned, is that there is this relying on it as the sole means of communication, right? Expecting that you body, right? You look at something like, oh, I need to talk, right? We're expecting that, and that's not how it's evolving, right? So I understand that, and I think we're going into House Energy and Digital Infrastructure next week to talk about the annual report. So we're getting there. But I think that will be the first one I've talked about since coming back in 2 years or so.
Which is why I'm wondering if it makes sense to sort of put it in statute that meeting shall happen yearly, rather than the report that meeting shall happen. Is there, you're not gonna be able to answer this question for me right now, but do you know if there is precedent otherwhere in statute where we've said like this meeting shall happen?
So depends on who you're compelling, right? If you're compelling another government entity to, by a certain date, appear in legislative committees, that can happen. And in fact, usually, those kind of reporting entities have the freedom to choose when they report, that would be a written form or just coming with a oral presentation. If you're talking about compelling both sides to sit down, like a legislative committee, then you kind of get rules, and that would be better controlled by other mechanisms.
So what you're telling me is if we kept the report as it currently is, digital services already has the ability to have that be a verbal meeting with us, that we actually don't need to change this to have that be,
I have to
you need to
see,
come in.
I have to see if it says submit a written report.
Okay,
And if it just says report by X date, then they'd have essentially the freedom to choose which one.
right. Can we find out if it's submit a written report? Cause I hear you and I don't wanna.
Yeah, I
make people
believe
do
it
that.
is because it has a January 15th due date, which would be hard to get in front of the appropriate
Yes, I
committees.
would suggest we change that.
So I believe it's submit an annual report. I don't know if it does say written, but the date kind of implies that it's,
So this is in, 3 VSA 3303 reporting records and review requirements of the agency of digital services. Says it's subdivision A, which is annual report budget. Secretary shall submit to, House committees, Senate committees, concurrent governs annual budget requests. So that's the timing period. And annual report. So that's the competition period. And annual report. So no reference to written for information technology and cybersecurity. The report shall reflect the priorities of the agency and shall include bullets, which are conducive to being written down. A lot of information is required here. And the rest. So it's silent to written or not, but it's
so that doesn't cover the Cybersecurity Advisory Council.
okay.
So that was separately, that was Act 71 of the 23 session. Can't remember where it made it in statute. But where is it? Trying to read through the session reports on or before January 15th each year, the council shall submit a written report to the House committees on commerce and economic development, on the environment and energy, government operations and military affairs, and on ways and means, and Senate committees on economic development, housing and general affairs, on finance and on government operations with status updates as to the work of the council. Any recommendations for legislative action? So,
Different report.
yeah.
So up until this year, the Senate didn't have anything having to do with IT or energy. The
No, that's right.
committee across the hall does now, institutions, and they're not included in that report. I guess I'm not a big fan of putting anything in statute in terms of requiring a meeting. I think if Sean was going to be here for a while, he should probably in January of each year. Because to me, as soon as the report is issued, it's dated and it's not, you know, it doesn't live through the session because things change so quickly. I would be glad to have you come in annually and tell us where you are, what you're doing, what's new. And I know Senator Harrison across the hall would be as well. Those to me, and maybe, well, Senator Clarkson won't be here next year, but who's ever taking economic development over would likewise. I think those are the three agencies or the committees on this side.
Okay.
Well, in my understanding of the way the language is written on the report that's on my sheet, and technically I think the report that's on yours, because they're two different reports, is that it's up to you, is it written or is it a meeting? So this doesn't say a written report, it just says a report. And what we just heard from legislative council is that report could be you coming in.
I guess I'm confused because my assumption, what I was led to believe was that 907 was dealing with the annual report of the Cybersecurity Advisory Council. So that's what I read to you. What he was reading was Agency of Digital Services required annual report.
Yes, which says
So they are separate.
report on IT and cybersecurity.
That is separate than the Cybersecurity Advisory Council's annual report.
Okay,
Two different things.
but and the right.
And I'm not sure which one, and I guess I apologize because I tried finding in 907 a listing of anything in cybersecurity and I couldn't. So I wanted to make sure I could speak to what the expectation was. So what is the report specifically that?
So the one that is on our sheet is from 3 VSA subsection 3303A, and it is the annual report on IT and cybersecurity from the Agency of Digital Services.
Okay.
So different report, but
Yes.
you're bringing to us that you have a concern about this report as well. And if we're doing a report spill, I feel like if there's a problem, we should fix it.
Well, trying to remember, currently, I think the Cybersecurity Advisory Council is set to sunset in 28.
In 28.
Right, I think we did a 5-year horizon. on that bill in 23. So it's meant to go in 28. So right, we only have 2 more iterations, so we can continue as is and me be more proactive of getting in front of the right committees moving forward and then adjust from there.
I think
So my question for you is if a shift from a January 15th deadline when we've been in the building for maybe a week and a half to a February 15th deadline would give you more time to do that and meet the requirements.
For the Cybersecurity Advisory Council,
That way you have a longer runway to actually get in front of the committee.
What was the House recommendation, Tim? Do you know?
This was for 3 VSA 3303, which that's the statute we reference. The House didn't incorporate it into the bill.
So we just let it be. Well, now we're talking about 2 different.
yeah, sorry, I completely.
That's okay. But I guess where I'm coming from is if we're doing a reporting bill and we can make it work better now,
Mhm.
why not? And if simply shifting the deadline of your report to February 15th instead of January 15th gives you the runway to come and sit in front of the committees you need to and provide that report in a way that actually is valuable, I would support doing that.
I wouldn't be opposed to repealing it and having ADS come into the committees annually.
So again, there are 2 different reports. The
Yep.
report in our bill is the ADS one.
Yes.
This is the Cybersecurity Council.
And I apologize because I am not in a position to represent Secretary Riley Hughes as to their current desires with regards to that annual report.
Okay.
So I was,
That's okay.
So the one you're doing,
I'm representing you. It's representing me on your behalf.
the one you're doing isn't in this report.
It's not.
No, I'm guessing that where the wires and
Yeah.
when cybersecurity got added, everyone kind of
Okay, yeah.
thinks to the council first.
But I feel like rather than making them continue to produce a report that's not useful for the next 2 years, we can extend that deadline for them 1 month to allow them to be more effective for the next 2 years if we're already doing a reporting bill. And then we can hear from Secretary Riley Hughes on the report we actually meant to hear about.
Okay. We are past time, so I am sensitive to your next session, but I would be more than glad to come back and talk about the work of the council
Okay,
when you have an opportunity.
yeah, we could probably have you next week.
As a mostly retired person, that Mondays work great for me.
Well, we're not here Monday, but
No, that's why I suggested having you at the end of our meeting.
Yeah.
I thought you might like to do that. We
Yeah.
are running.
Fair
long.
enough.
Senator Clarkson.
So I just think generally for whoever's listening, if the legislature in the various committees have not responded to reports or taken action on recommendations in reports, I encourage people and departments and agencies to proactively reach out to the chair and say, we haven't heard from you. We'd like action on this and we would like to get on the calendar and on the agenda. So I don't, particularly for senators whose bandwidth is narrow, timeframes are short, and too many emails. Often we get behind on email. I often get behind on reading the reports that come into us, which is one of the reasons we're doing this work, because we get too many reports we don't read. I encourage everybody to be proactive. If you have not heard from us, please be in touch with us.
And it's not our committee anymore. It's my understanding. You were talking primarily
No, it's
about
all
digital
committee. That's
services.
all-
Well, for this
Well-
report, it goes to digital services
Well,
in the House and in this.
yes, what's in statute is it goes to 4 different committees. on the
Including this
side.
one.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Right, government operations.
All right.
Yeah,
So,
but I think all of us need to be
For next week.
proactive when we.
So we'll send you an invite for next week to
looking forward to it.
rise us of the.
And I'll actually be ready to talk about what I wanted to talk about.
Okay.
Derailed you, so.
Yeah.
No,
Did you want to talk about being semi-retired or about cybersecurity?
Oh,
I have to leave an updated.
I could spend
Sean, I think you
an hour
brought
on
up
either.
an important thing that we can fix for you for the next 2 years. So even though it derailed us a little bit, I'm glad you did.
Thank you.
That was great.
Thank
Thanks.
you for your
Good to
time.
see you
And
again.
Yes, good to see everyone again.
Okay, so we obviously have some more work to do on this bill.
I think there are 3 outstanding questions and I'll work with to get the right people to answer them and then we might.
I think-
Until next week.
So 10-minute break and we'll pick up the OPR bill when we come back.